Hello, it's Jimmy. Have you ever gotten bad advice? Did you know at the beginning it was bad advice? If so, did you act on it? Why'd you act on it if you knew it was bad? Conversely, have you ever gotten good advice and acted on it? If you had a positive outcome and you knew that after the fact, then you'd say, yeah, that was good advice. But I think too often we hear good advice, don't act on it, and then later regret it. So, how do you get discernment on what is good and bad advice? Well, a lot of that just has to do with your experience with it. I suppose you can also rely on other people's experience with advice and see how it worked out for them. The problem with that is everybody, of course, is different and their circumstances may not be the same as yours. A lot of what I try to do here on my little channel is explain what I did and why it worked for me. There are a few universal truths that apply to everybody, regardless of what your situation is, or at least to a very wide margin of people. I don't mind telling people what I've done if they ask, or, well, on this channel you haven't asked, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because I followed a process and it worked. I found some good advice, and my experience has been very positive. Some bad advice that I took and didn't know it was bad until after the fact was buying single stocks. I knew that when I was young that the stock market was a good place to invest money for long term. I did know the pitfalls of trying to do short term investing. I had no delusions about trying to be a day trader of sorts, but I thought I could go ahead and pick some decent stocks of single companies and put some money into that. Well, I did that in 2008, and I bought some GM stock. And I think if you've been around long enough, you know what happened in 2009. GM filed for bankruptcy protection. I guess that was bad advice in regards to buying single stocks. The stock market as a whole is a fine place to invest. But I guess the positive that came out of that is I learned I suck at picking single stocks. And, well, maybe that's not a positive. That could be a negative. I guess a positive would be I learned how to do a tax loss because of the failure of the company. I had to sell my stock in GM, and I was able to write it off on my taxes, which, of course, at that time were pretty meager, but valuable lesson learned. Just wish it hadn't cost me that much. And really, that back then, it wasn't a ton of money, but it does sting a little bit. Well, how about some good advice that I followed? That mainly came out of Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover. I think I read that back in 2016 and thought, okay, these are good lessons. This seems like a pretty solid structure, but I'm going to put it to the test and see. Now, I've heard a lot of people over the years say, oh, yes, we went through Financial Peace University and read The Total Money Makeover, and it was very good, and people got their finances in order. And so I heard a lot of positive comments, some negative too. I mean, you're going to get that with everything. But interestingly, the more negative comments were from people that either knew the information and never acted on it, so they really didn't have their own experience with it, or people that kind of partially did it, like, well, we started off with it and then we just didn't. Okay, well, I'm going to kind of have to eliminate those two groups as far as your weigh in on whether or not it's good advice. After reading The Total Money Makeover and figuring it was a pretty solid plan, I did move on to taking Financial Peace University. That's Ramsey Solutions' 9-week course on how to handle money. And my wife and I just did that at home on the DVD set and the workbook. And I thought, okay, this is good. This is a much better option than what I'm doing and kind of creating out of thin air on my own. So let's go ahead and do this, and we'll just see how it works. Well, it worked out pretty nice. We were seeing good fruit from doing the plan, and I decided I could lead FPU, which I've done probably half dozen times or so since 2016. Going back to the advice concept, you have to test the advice that you're given because you don't know at the beginning if it's going to be bad or good. Well, how do you test it? You have to kind of look at how people have actually done it. Has it worked out for them? But ultimately, you have to do it for yourself and find out. I think theories are fine to explore, but if you never act on them or understand in a rather more intimate way whether they work or not, then it's just a bunch of gassing off about this or that. As interesting as it is to dive into them, I don't really have time to be philosophical about things or wonder, well, can I get a better mutual fund with a lower expense ratio, or what are the 12B1 fees for this or that mutual fund? I don't get that granular with it. I know that information's out there, and sometimes it's interesting to take a look, but I don't let that weigh in heavily on my decision. Now, if the expense ratio is 2%, 3%, I'm not going to get into that fund, so it is worth taking a peek at just to make sure you're not getting hosed. Pick a decent mutual fund with a long enough track record that it's showing returns year over year. You're going to have dips here and there, obviously, but if it's got decent growth and it's fitting your objectives, and for me, it's going to fall into one of the 4 categories that Ramsey Solutions suggests, then I'm just going to pull the trigger and do it. I'm not going to sit there and scratch down into the minutia. I'm not equipped for that mentally. I don't want to do that. I want my money to go to work. And so I just have to take the advice and go with it and see what works. Now, one thing that I find interesting is looking at financial advice on the internet, mainly YouTube. I don't have those other social media cesspools to swim in, mainly just YouTube, but sometimes there's aggregate of TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. I'm not involved in those myself, but sometimes it is interesting to see the advice that's being peddled out there. For me, for my advice, I do have my own structure that I work within, and it is very much aligned with Ramsey Solutions. So I am looking through that lens at this other advice that's out there. And for me, what I don't like, what kind of rubs me the wrong way, is seeing people that have rather complicated structure to investing or overly onerous tax situations that they try to get themselves in. Get me out of paying taxes, sure, as long as it's legal and it's not onerous. You're going to have to pay taxes no matter what. You can't hide it. So sometimes the bad advice there is, just open an LLC. These are people that do not know tax code. LLCs are generally pass-through. You will have to pay taxes on them. But the companies and people that are saying, hey, I can help you set that up, they're just going to make money and you'll still lose money in most cases. And I just stick to mutual funds. It seems to work well for me. A little bit of real estate because I know it. I don't pick things that I don't know myself. It doesn't mean they're bad, but it's hard for me to give advice to people on things such as Bitcoin and other, new styles of investing, new investment vehicles. I just don't know them. I'm not comfortable with them myself, so I really don't want to recommend them to others. However, that doesn't mean they're bad. So I look at that too when people are really into crypto, but they know it and they understand it and it's working for them. Well, good for them. I mean, I don't care. I want everybody to invest in the way that works best for them. Just isn't for me. I don't hate it. I'm not against it, but it's just not what I know. Now, I don't have a problem with things like Ramsey Solutions where, here's the framework to do it. It's pretty much common sense stuff, but we'll put it in one place and it's easy for you to find. And then go out and do it yourself. I think that's the big problem where people don't want to actually do the work of investing themselves, and so they want to turn it over to somebody else or have them spoon feed the information to them. That's not always a good idea. You should know what you're getting into, but Just don't be a wet noodle. I obviously don't have problems spending a couple dollars to learn a new solution. I mean, the Ramsey's product has been great, and I think we paid $79 for that course with a coupon, and I didn't have a problem doing that. But what if you don't want to spend money? I think that was one of my pushbacks early on about hearing about Financial Peace University. Why would I pay some guy to tell me how to save money? Won't I save money by not paying the money to have him tell me? But okay, I get that. A nice free resource available is at your public library. They got books there. You can get the Total Money Makeover, no charge. If your library is modern and on the internet, you might have something like Libby, where you can check those books out for free. And if that still isn't good enough for you, the Total Money Makeover is available in audio form for free by searching for it on your favorite podcast player. It will even be read to you, so you don't have to even lift the book up yourself. Now, you will have to do the work yourself to get yourself out of debt and investing and getting yourself prepared for the future, but it's a good starting point if you really are that cheap. So yes, there's good advice, bad advice available out there, not only on the internet, but just talking to people in your spheres. And I don't know, you have to just build up that muscle of discerning good advice from bad. But ultimately, it comes down to taking action on the advice and then doing it yourself and having the experience. I stay pretty conservative with my investing philosophy, and I really do follow all the Ramsey baby steps. We are on baby step 7 now. We don't have any debt. I do not have a credit card. I travel just fine. If we need to buy a vehicle, I just pay cash for it. I don't need anything fancy. I'm not going to go get an $85,000 pickup truck. I have no interest in that anyway. I do have some knowledge in used vehicles, so I guess I have an advantage there that maybe other people don't, but I don't know. I just don't let that stuff worry me. I have taken the advice that I have been given, the good stuff from Ramsey Solutions. I think it's pretty solid, and it has worked out for me. And it's worked out for many, many other people. So I do highly recommend it. I really do try not to give bad advice on my channel, but I will give examples from my own life and what has worked, maybe what hasn't worked, and it may not be for everybody. That's fine. I think it's a good starting point, and I will continue to do the Ramsey steps. I don't really see a reason to waver from them. It's been working fine for us. I guess the best thing when trying to discern good and bad advice is checking to see who's telling you the advice and are they practicing what they're preaching. If there is a disconnect there, then perhaps their advice may not be that great if they're not doing it themselves. Well, that's all I want to talk about on good advice and bad advice. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you're having a great day.